80% of your results come from 20% of what you do, and most people spend their lives focused on the wrong 20%. If you don't know who I am, my name is Carter Positano, and I'm a 22-year-old entrepreneur who has grown and scaled multiple businesses to 6 figures plus in less than 3 years. My goal here on YouTube is to be the mentor that I once needed when I was getting started out in business. And my goal here on YouTube is I strive to be not only the person that I needed when I was 18, but the person that I needed last year, last month, last week, and yesterday. And if you are somebody that is in any similar position starting out in business or 20 years ahead of me in business, I think everyone can learn from a changed perspective. And I hope that there's something you can take away from this video. And today I want to talk about the 80-20 rule, which is something that you can implement in every single part of your life, no matter what you are doing. And the core concept is not everything in your life is equal, and some things matter way, way more than others. Small inputs create massive outputs, and most effort creates wasted effort. Like I said, 20% of what you do is responsible for 80% of your outcome. And now there is also a flip side of this, and the fact that 80% of the time you should be doing the right thing, and 20% of the time you can let off the gas a little bit, because that is what balance is. So I want to go over both sides of this 80-20 rule that I implemented in my life when I was very young. And this is a lesson that I've really kept with myself for as long as I've been doing this. The first thing I want to go over is the fact that 80% of your revenue in business is going to come from 20% of customers. Now, what does this look like and what does this mean actually implemented, right? The thing is most of your sales and most of your profit is going to come from people that are either repeat customers or big clients, right? So the two largest businesses that I've made most of my money on has been from two things: a retail e-commerce shop and my construction business. So here's the thing is I'm going to break this down in terms of the ceiling business that I run, which is my construction business. On average, let's say this year I do 300 driveways. Now, those 300 driveways on average, you can do 10 to 20 a day. Let's just go on the lower side of that. So let's say I can do 10 driveways per day. Okay, so the minimum charge for a driveway is $295. Okay, which means if I do 10 driveways, I make $2,950. Which means the most I can make in a day if I'm doing 10 driveways a day is $2,950. Okay? Now, if we bring these numbers up, 300 times 295 over the course of 30 days can make me roughly $90,000 or $88,500. Now, that's awesome, right? You need to fill in gaps in business, and you need to stay busy and consistent the whole time that you're working in order to have a sustainable business. But the reality of it is when I do a large commercial job, the profit margins are much higher. You're at the same spot for the most of the day, if not 2 days, which means you're not moving around. Your time is spent more efficiently, and there's more money in these larger commercial jobs, which in turn means that if I'm doing $20,000 jobs and each one takes a day and a half to 2 days to complete, okay, I can do what I just did in revenue that took 30 days in 5 days, 5 to 10 days, right? A third of the time, which means that if I were to make $200,000 next year, okay, and I only did 5 commercial jobs, but I did 450 residential driveways, I would be coming up and they would both be equal. Which means if I did $1 million in revenue and it was 50-50 split down the line, right? 500,000 in driveways, I would have to do 1,700 driveways to make that money. But if I did that in $20,000 commercial jobs, then that number drastically changes, right? Because if we look here, 500,000 divided by 20,000. I have to do 25 jobs, which we could complete in 50 days. If I was doing 1,700 commercial jobs to make that same 500,000, that 1,700 divided by 10 becomes 170 days. So, as I said, 80% of your profits can come from 20% of your clients in most of the world. And this goes the same way for the vintage clothing business that I run. Because the thing is high ticket items are going to make up the difference in the lower tier items. I can sell 100 items for $20 each, okay? And that is still only coming out as $2,000. But if I sell 4 jackets that are worth $500 each, then I'm also making $2,000, which means people need to reframe and look at their businesses as what is making you the most money? What is your 20%? What clients keep coming back that are constantly giving you a better ROI? And what is responsible for that, right? Because the thing is when I shifted my vintage business from pure volume to I want to sell as much to I want to sell the high ticket items that people are willing to pay the most for, not only did I start making more money, but I also was able to scale down my business in a way to make the same amount of money with way less effort and way less space. Now, on top of this, as I said, there's hundreds of ways to look at the 80-20 principle. But the thing is on top of it is 80% of your progress is determined by 20% of your task, which is the complete flip. It's the opposite, right? But this 80-20 rule works so consistently throughout your life. If you look at this as a frame of mind in your life, right? Because the thing is you need to find your real needle movers, the things that are really, really pushing the wagon, right? And that might be closing deals, content that converts people into actual customers, or outreach that works. They might be having one salesman that goes door to door and actually makes the biggest difference. Somebody that's doing outreach that is actually getting you the sales. Because the thing is, right, is if I'm doing thousands in ads, right? I'm posting thousands of meta ads trying to make as much of a conversion as possible for my construction business, but I'm only really getting like 5 to 10 customers. So my ROI on that $1,000 ad might be 2 to 1, right? So I make $2,000 on every $1,000 I spend. That's not a good way to spend money. But my head salesman, for instance, that sells for my construction business, his ROI has been so far, if we look at my spreadsheets for this, my salesman ROI, roughly I spend $6,000 for every $50,000 he makes. Every $50,000 he makes in revenue for me, which means his ROI is 7.33% compared to what ads might be. Which means wasting your time on ads opposed to getting another high ticket salesman is going to be a waste of time. And that is true in all of business. So the 80-20 principle can constantly be readjusted to figure out what works best for your business and what is actually pushing the needle, what is going to make you money and what is going to make you the most progress. And like I said, this goes for everything. If you want to learn a language, 20% of the tasks you do is going to be responsible for 80% of the progress you make in learning that language. There are certain tasks that are more effective at helping you learn and memorize the language than other things are going to be, right? Full immersion compared to sitting there and just doing vocab is not going to progress you in the same way. So you need to frame everything you do in this mindset, in the sense that you need to tighten down exactly what tasks are making you the most progress. And that goes for any single aspect of your life. And the other thing I want to go over with this principle is the fact that in life, this 80-20 principle can really create a balance for you that makes your life more sustainable. I would like to classify myself as someone who's a workaholic. And the truth is most of the time, what I'm constantly struggling to adapt to is the fact that I need to balance out work with relationships. And the thing is if you can manage to lock in certain things to 80%, the other 20% you can let off the gas with. This is what I was referring to at the start of the video. The reality is sleep, diet, and fitness are going to make way bigger of a difference in your life and in your businesses than anybody may think unless you actually lock in on these things. And the reality is obviously if you could have 100% perfect sleep every single night, that's awesome. But what that doesn't allow for you is balance in life, right? So the thing is 80% of your sleep should be perfect, but 20% you can let off the gas. And even neurosciences like Andrew Huberman talks about this often, because the thing is as important as sleep is, if you're sacrificing your quality of life because you're constantly so obsessed with the quality of sleep you're having or how well your diet is, then you're never going to enjoy life. You can't go for dinner with friends. You can't enjoy things with people because you're so locked in on this schedule, right? So the thing is I'm somebody that eats healthy, but I'll still have snacks and processed food at the end of the day, as long as my diet for 80% of it is backfilled with clean food. After that, once you get your nutrients in, then that 80% is good. You're good. Nobody is perfect and you will never be perfect. And the second you stop trying to be perfect, things become a lot easier because none of us are perfect. But as long as you can get 80% there, the difference that's going to make is still going to be immeasurable compared to if you weren't doing that, right? And I also think that if you were trying to do 100% on any of these tasks, you were going to suffer in the long run because of how self-obsessed you get doing these things. This also goes for relationships and exercises. 20% of your exercises, 20% of your sets are going to be responsible for 80% of the results. That's compound lifts, that's going to failure, right? So the thing is even working out, you can make your workouts. People spend hours at the gym. You can spend 45 minutes and have the same results as somebody that spends 2 hours each day, and actually maybe greater results if you're actually focusing on what needs to get done. On top of this, 20% of people create 80% of happiness. How many people and how many relationships in your life actually provide nothing for you mentally, physically, healthy, right? So there's so many toxic people we fill our lives with that we waste time with that bring us down instead of bring us up. How many things are you wasting your time with? How many people are you wasting your time with, right? And it's the same thing with 20% of habits create 80% of the results you do. Listen, I want to read every day. And the thing is even just 10 pages a day is going to make the biggest difference. It's not 100% of the book every day. It's not 100% locked in every day. There's days you can miss. That's okay. But trying to make sure 80% of the time you're getting it right is going to allow you to stop being so hard on yourself and also allow you to make progress without stopping. You don't need to be hard on yourself every single time you miss one day doing something, but it's also the consistency that creates the outcome at the end. So if you want to be great and do great things, you need to be focusing on what is the 20% of this task and what is the 80%. And this goes for every single aspect of your life, not just business. Now, I do classify myself as someone that wants to help young entrepreneurs, but the thing is being an entrepreneur that is successful means a lot of different habits are constantly stacking throughout your life to make you the person that can make those millions of dollars. And I think focusing on this is going to make a big difference for a lot of people, because that change of mind is what allows you to see things from different perspectives. And when you see things from different perspectives in any aspect, it allows you to reframe, reset what you're doing, because there's always room for improvement. Whether we're talking about focusing on the 20% so that 80% becomes a larger margin, and all of a sudden 50% of what we're doing is actually responsible for 50% of our results, right? Then we become better systems. We create better systems and we implement better things into our life no matter what, right? In every single aspect. Things become easier. So if you actually want to apply this rule to your life, the thing you need to ask is what 20% of things is actually moving the needle? What 20% is actually pushing this business? What 20% is actually creating revenue? What 20% is actually making me the best in this situation? Whether that's in the gym, diet-wise, in the gym, learning a language, learning a skill, or growing a business. What 20% is actually moving the needle? And the next thing you want to ask is what 20% is holding me back? What things am I doing that I can improve on? What is the 20% that is pulling me all the way down to the bottom? Because if we can cut these things out or improve on these things, we are going to end up way farther and ahead of everybody else focusing on the wrong things the whole time throughout their lives. We need to double down on the things that are actually moving, the 20% that is actually moving the needle, and we need to eliminate or reduce the 20% that is holding it. And the last thing I want to talk about is the truth about the 80-20 rule. 80-20 isn't about being lazy. It's about ruthless focus. But the problem is we cannot ruthlessly focus if we are not allowing ourselves to take breaks in what we're doing. The hard part isn't doing more. It's having the discipline to ignore everything that doesn't matter, right? So saying no is what creates the 80-20 rule on the flip side. Because your life doesn't change when you do more. It changes when you figure out what actually matters and you go all in on these things. When you can pinpoint exactly what is making the most progress in your life, then you can eliminate all the clutter around you that's holding you back and being the biggest time waster in whatever aspect of life you want to implement this into. Once again, guys, my name is Carter Positano, and I hope you guys have learned something and have enjoyed this video. If you guys want to leave a comment and tell me what you want to see, what you want to hear from me, then I'd be really, really happy to create new ideas depending on what people want. Like I've said in all these other videos, is I want to create a community of entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, and we can build it this way. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video.